So I was walking through the grocery store the other day, admiring everything fall. All the colors, the scents, the candles, the candies. It all made me ready for fall, as well as the holidays that are coming with fall. Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, they're all on the horizon. Holidays aren't just a time about isn't just about enjoying time with our loved ones. It isn't just about the food. While that all might play a big part in our holiday traditions, it's really a time for us to reflect on our lives and the many ways which God blesses us. In today's readings, we hear about leprosy. And at the time of Naaman and Jesus, this was a disease that resulted in people being outcast from the community. How many of us have ever felt outcast, either from our families, our friend group, or even our church group? Today in Kings, we read about Naaman, who at his time was quite the soldier. He had many people who looked up to him because he was a fierce fighter, but he had leprosy. Through the prophet Elisha, Naaman is told to go down to the Jordan River where who was baptized? Jesus. And to throw himself into the water, not once, twice, or 3 times, but 7 times. So what does Naaman do? He goes and he plunges himself 7 times into the Jordan River. After the 7th time he appears, his skin is like that of a child. How many of us here today would be first in line to jump into the Jordan River if those were the effects? I know I would. This is what it looks like to have faith in God. And how Naaman reacts after he's been healed is one way we might react to God's blessings. You see, Naaman is healed, and the reaction is that of belief and gratitude. Today in the Gospel of Luke, we hear a story of 10 lepers. They ask Jesus for help, and he tells them to go see the priest. He doesn't heal them and then send them on their way to go see the priest. He told them to go as they were, skin oozing pus and blood. If you've ever seen anybody with leprosy, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Imagine what kind of faith it would take to go face a priest in that condition. I can only imagine myself feeling scared or ashamed. Regardless, the 10 lepers make their way to the priest, at which time they begin to be healed. One of them realizes that what's happening, and he returns to Jesus to give God thanks. The first reading in the gospel are 2 stories of healing, with 2 very different reactions. On one hand, we have Naaman, who was healed and responded with gratitude. And in the gospel, all but one of the lepers go about their way, with only one returning to thank God. The people we've read about, 2 of them at least in today's readings, immediately express their gratitude. When do you give thanks to God? I was listening to a podcast a few months ago, and in it the woman was giving ideas on how we might be more conversational in our relationship with God. One where rather than just praying, we're actually talking to God as if God were a friend. I find this helpful as our relationship with God is much like any other muscle, any other relationship. It takes energy, it takes time. Our relationship with God is like a muscle that we have to work out. If we stop working out, we lose the muscle. The woman says that to set a reminder on our phones, which I've done, to thank God. Even if it's hard at first, eventually it will get easier. At first it felt as if I was just making things up, just making up random things to be thankful for. But now I'm able to see all the ways, both big and small, that God blesses me. The second reading reminds us to always remember Christ, and that through him we will find salvation. If we have died with him, we shall also live with him. But if we deny him, he will deny us. Are you like Naaman, or are you going to be like the other 9 lepers who never came back? In today's reading, people received the gift of healing. One was inspired to grow in their relationship with God and their faith, while the other person we read about today missed their chance to grow in their relationship with God. This week I pray that we're able to open our minds and our hearts so that we can not only see the lepers in our own lives, but also see how it is that we may be lepers in our actions. If we're being honest, we have all had times for whatever reason that we forget about God. We forget to thank God. But the good news is that God never forgets. So if we have been a little lepers at times, forgetting about God, remember that God always remembers, even if we don't. This fall, as we gather with one another, as we gather with our families, let's take time to thank God for all of the blessings, big and small. If Naaman and the 10 lepers could find faith and healing, then certainly we can all as well.